I was just saying, I'm going to start with a disclaimer. I've just arrived back in the country from Kazakhstan. I am running on sugar and caffeine, and so I hope I manage to retain a thread of sense through this. But if I don't, just shout, throw tomatoes, carry on. So I'm here to promote Sitecore. Don't sell Drupal. Not really. So no, I'm here to talk about a few things that I think perhaps the community doesn't do as well as it could. At Nudge, we've been using Drupal for 10 years now. We've done all sorts of projects in it, from huge budgets to, of course, the smaller ones, even now and when we started out. And we've seen Drupal evolve as we've evolved as a company. And I think Drupal 8 is actually a turning point in many ways. And I'd like for us as a community to address a couple of things that I see as an issue with Drupal as a community in the open source in the coming years, as if, in some ways, we were a closed source community, which will make sense shortly. So I'm going to go through three missed opportunities, if you like. I think the first is development is slowly getting to the bottom of the value chain, which I'll explain. Drupal 8 is awesome, but our marketing of the platform, I don't believe, quite matches the quality of the platform itself. And I think Drupal 8 opens up some huge new opportunities for us as Drupal experts. But with number 2 and number 1 highlighted, I'm worried that we won't, as a community, take advantage of those opportunities as well as we could. So, is there a clicker?
There isn't one next time.
Okay, that's all right. So I'll start with Stupid Kitty. So this is my take on how stupid we are for being open source developers and in an open source community, especially as we effectively, as technology gets better and better, languages get higher and higher level, software becomes easier and easier to use and to develop on, all of our real development genius has gone into creating the platform. And that's what we give away for free. And don't get me wrong, there's going to be some concerned faces in the audience saying, well, we do some very complicated things with that software that not everybody could do. And we do at Nudge too. But as the platform gets better, naturally, we slowly are giving away more and more of our genius. And this is the type of genius that the closed source community is selling for hundreds and hundreds of thousands of pounds. So who's the most awesome person in the room today? Well, in fact, it's all of us. It's all of you guys as contributors to this wonderful piece of software. I'm sure you guys have all used this in your pitch decks, in your slides. But isn't it amazing that in the top corner, sorry, for those of you that don't know what this is Gartner's Magic Quadrant of CMSs. And fine, it's labeled as Acquia up in the top corner there. But isn't it amazing that as an open source community, and as an open source bunch of developers and companies that pay people to contribute, we're sitting up there with Sitecore and Adobe. That's really, really, really cool. What perhaps is difficult about this is that those two companies are making hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars, if you like, out of licensing the abilities and the structure and the fantasticness, if you like, that those pieces of software have, which we don't make on. And my worry is with development generally, and as I said, this is not necessarily the most popular belief in the world, but I believe it to be true, is as our communication tools get better, as the software, the base platform gets better, as the languages get better and evolve, we can, to start with, work in a more and more global world, where development can, more successfully than 10 years ago, be pushed out to countries where the cost of living is a lot cheaper. India's churning out more PhDs a year than babies. Disclaimer, not my stat. Haven't heavily checked the source, but I really like it. And it could well be true. But while we do have countries like India churning out incredible technologists all of the time, and with all the tools we're creating to make it easier and easier to work with them, the actual development of the project is becoming more and more commoditized. So you might be okay today, and maybe tomorrow, if that's a large slice of your revenue, but I don't think you always will be, and neither will we at Nudge. So the sale is not the development, and soon I don't think the money will be either. I think that will become a smaller and smaller portion of projects, which poses difficulty or interesting challenges to a lot of the companies that have survived merely as development houses over the past 10 odd years, including us. So since we're committed to stupidity, in the nicest possible way, giving away our genius, where's the cash? Where should we be making money, and where do we have to go? So I asked Freya, who works in our offices, who's wonderful, to call up 30 Drupal agencies with a fake brief. I didn't get anyone to write a proposal for us, but I did waste a good sales phone call of maybe a couple of companies in here's time, so I apologise for that. But we wanted to do some research, and it was for the greater good. It was for this event. And so the brief we gave was that Freya was a consultant working with a well-known prepaid card operator, and they wanted to refresh their website. Now, first thing you'll notice, refresh their website, crap brief. But we all get them all the time. So I thought we'd start there and to see where we got to. And what I wanted to find out was how many of the 30 agencies, or the 30 Drupal agencies that she called, looked at this project or looked at this brief and how they A, broke it down, and B, talked about what they could do as an agency. And the results were depressing, really, as a community. Only 7 out of 30 talked about user testing at all. You might have your own views on this, but at Nudge, we get an incredible amount of value out of user testing and consistently increase our clients' results. Of course, it also means that development doesn't have to be some of the mainstay of our budget, adds value to the project, but more importantly, adds value to our customer for righteous stuff. 17% on average, one of the questions we tasked Freya with asking was, on average, what percentage of your budget goes into the planning? It averaged at 17% across the 30 agencies. Now, again, I'd argue that that means that a lot of the design and build, or the build specifically, is going to be a large chunk. Again, a huge threat. And I think it's very easy for technology-heavy or technology-focused companies to forget that we have to be results-driven. We have to be results-driven for our clients. And therefore, 17%, in my book anyway, and certainly in Nudge's book, does not create a strategy worth working to, and does not create a solution worth buying. 3 talks about activation and marketing. So only 10% wanted to carry on charging us after the original build, which scared the hell out of me. 1 talked about conversion rate optimization. 1 of a complete new site build, which could perform better, but we have no idea whether it would. I found that staggering. 19 talked about maintenance. That was popular. Once we've delivered your site, we are going to update it and keep it safe. And that, my friends, is our small, tiny piece of recurring revenue from this wonderful project. God help us. And I mean, God help all of us. 21 talked about analytics. Awesome. But only 4 talked about monitoring them on an ongoing basis, reviewing proactive data-driven improvements as a service. So for me, this was a bit of a wake-up call. And don't get me wrong, I'm not on a high horse here, because Nudge has been guilty of all of these things in the past, as have we all, I would imagine. But I think as a community, and I'll come on to the marketing of Drupal shortly, but as a community, we're a highly tech-focused community as opposed to a solutions-focused community. And as such, we often, I think, as Drupal agencies, become a piece of the journey, but don't integrate us into ourselves enough into the whole of the journey, which leads us wide open to become commoditized, especially as we're making it easier and easier to commoditize our services by improving our platform more and more. We all know that for the clients, the value's the destination, not the road taken. They're after results. But for the agency, if we're smart, if we're smart, we will ensure, I was tired when I wrote this slide, obviously, if we're smart, we'll ensure that the road has many resting points but never ends. Now, that hangs well with kind of the move towards agile or whatever. You know, there's a small agile conversation that erupted after the next session. We all talk about agile in development, but I think a lot of agencies forget that we're the centerpiece. The website is often the centerpiece of a much bigger and broader strategy. And we have the ability as that centerpiece to ensure that we become an integral part of not just the maintenance and the upgrades and the security or whatever it might be, but the whole strategy to come. But that takes a slight, if you like, sidestep from the traditional site builder approach, which is extremely project-based, short, large chunks of revenue from lots and lots of clients. What we really found was everybody came out and said, I'm an expert. I'm an expert in Drupal. I'm an expert in Drupal, and who cares? That was the problem. Busted. Because very few people, unless they're the enlightened YHA that knew the solution, knew what they wanted to do, come out and say, we need an expert in Drupal because we've actually worked out where our problems are in this value chain. People come along and say, I need to sell more credit cards, or I need more donations, or whatever it might be. But if you look at the way that a lot of Drupal dev shops put themselves into the market, they don't say, we do Drupal specifically for this vertical, and that's fantastic, because they say we're brilliant at Drupal. And busted, because we're all brilliant at Drupal, which is great for all of us, but also rubbish for all of us. So I guess the question for me was, why should a client swipe right, if you like, when they get to the agency profile? And for us, we're the same old nudgers we always are, but and I wanted to have launched our new website before today, but it didn't work out. We've got too much client work on, same old story. But you'll see that the way we talk about ourselves, certainly, is going to radically change in the market. Because we used to be the Drupal experts. We still are, same old agency, same staff, same level of expertise, same solutions. But we're presenting these solutions now in a completely different way. What we are fantastic at, and always have been, is user testing and data-driven user experience design. We're brilliant at that. We're great at conversion rate optimization, and one of the verticals we'll be targeting for us is SaaS, because we have some fantastic stories to tell in the SaaS market. Quite fortuitously, our best story ever is probably the last one, so I'll probably be using this slide for the next 10 years. We worked with a great company called Cashflow, 40K invested, 7 million return. We'll never get another result like that. But that's a result I can take. That's something I can talk about to a specific vertical all day long. And I can also, from my knowledge of other clients in that vertical, explain why Drupal is a fantastic fit for the financial sector, especially for some multinational companies. I can also explain why, for companies like Cashflow, who are actually part of a group and have centralized marketing teams, Drupal is a fantastic solution. But the way through the door is us being a specialist in a certain field and then adapting the benefits of Drupal to a specific vertical. And so I think, I guess one of the things I'm talking about is we don't need to be experts, we need to be specialists. And that's right. The question is, how do you fit a picture of Sylvester Stallone onto a Drupal camp slide? That's how you do it, ladies and gentlemen. So we need to become specialists. We need to become specialists, and we can do that in verticals. We can do that in complementary technologies, in user experience design or other areas of the experience. And the last one, in analysis, conversion rate, and strategy. This is a huge opportunity for every dev shop, and I'm not sure how many just plain dev shops we've got in the room, but this is a huge opportunity for plain dev shops, because the skill sets and the personality types that it takes to be a great Drupal developer and to administer Drupal projects with multiple stakeholders, to do is the same critical thinking and the same sort of scientific, technical brain that can easily be trained into being fantastic conversion rate optimists and strategists from analysts. And I think as Drupal moves forward, we need to make ourselves the conductors more and more. We've seen this fragmented trend of spend. At the end of the day, every digital strategy kind of has, if you like, three massive components. Finds traffic, bring it in. Website does something. After something has happened, do stuff with visitor. Ideally, keep them in audience somehow. We're the bit in the middle. We're the real value piece. And frequently, we say, yeah, thanks very much. Good website? Yeah, I'll update it next month. Have a good day. Which is daft. We've started, well, I've been doing it for years, but we've started talking about it more. We do a lot of PPC and Facebook advertising. We've started now taking it from other agencies and bringing it in-house. Fine, it took an extra hire to deal with some very big budgets, but the reality is we're getting huge results compared to the media agencies, because the media agencies used to procure traffic and lower the cost of clicks and lower the cost of acquisition, but usually only to a certain point, because they weren't experts at building landing pages. And even the ones that weren't experts at analyzing the full, if you like, the full picture of visitor behavior, which we could do. They were sending people to the well, but forgetting to make sure there was water in the well. We put water in the well, then work out how to send more people for less money. It's a more sensible approach. Now, there's a bunch of opportunities, but if we're in control of the numbers and the stats, we can choose to bring some more of that journey in-house and keep our clients engaged. How am I doing on time?
10 past?
What does that mean in
20 minutes.
left?
Yep.
Excellent. Okay, I'm going to come in short. That's it. Sorry, I'm rattling through at speed because I had not rehearsed this at all, and nothing worse than going over. So a lot of what I've just said chimes with where I'm going here, I guess. Drupal 8 is awesome, but our marketing of the platform is not, as a community. I think for a bunch of people that have one of the most exciting, forward-thinking, and advanced content management systems or content management framework, whatever you want to call it, where we spend countless, if we count the man hours, countless pounds and dollars improving the technology, I don't think we necessarily give the same consideration to ensuring that the customers of this world understand that it is quite such a, that it's quite as powerful as it is. Now, enlightened customers, the way HA, every so often we get a phone call from a corporate saying we'd like to go with Drupal. The public sector's done us a huge favor, don't get me wrong. But we won't dine out in the public sector forever. Well, we might. Let's hope. but we probably won't dine out in the public sector forever. We all invest in the engine, but we don't invest in telling people about it, or I don't think we do that enough. There are plenty of events, and I'm skipping around my slides accidentally. So we need to, I think, get the world or the world's marketing directors or digital project managers or whatever it might be to get to the same place that chief operation officers got to with IBM. That phrase, no one ever got fired for hiring IBM or for hiring Accenture. We need that to be Drupal in the content management framework or content management system setting. We need this to be, no one ever got fired for using Drupal, and of course no one should get fired for using Drupal. We all know that. We all use some of these logos on our slides alongside our own big case studies. But the reality is, for an awful lot of the big organizations with the very, very big budgets, Drupal is still a scary game to play. We'll sit there and we'll pitch up against CQ5 or whatever it might be. But we're the dangerous one, which to us may seem a little mad sometimes. But to them it doesn't. So I think we should step back from that and say to ourselves, who's failed in this equation? I think it's us as a community. So I think perhaps, and this is kind of my if you like, discussion point for the day. I wanted to provide some food for thought, not necessarily any solutions, because I'm sure 90% of the room are smarter than I am. But okay, maybe 100. But I think that probably we can solve this problem, or certainly get some way towards solving it, by creating distros of Drupal. And if you like, subcommittees, if you like, or sub-communities, that really focus on specific verticals or specific needs. And to an extent, sometimes this kind of happens in weird organic ways, but it doesn't appear to be as organized as I think it could be. So in that terms of swiping right, if we were talking to if I said to myself, or put out there, I'm a Drupal agency, we are the best with multinational charities that have a proven track record of optimizing both traffic, and we have a proven track record of optimizing both traffic and donation. We have incredible knowledge of integrating with Razor's Edge and experience, this is terribly written, and incredible knowledge of experience customization based on donor behavior. If I go out to the market with that statement, and I market that properly, I'm an obvious candidate for every multinational charity pitch. Now, Drupal is a great choice for a multinational charity that needs multilingual. Let's not go into that, but for an awful lot of reasons. How do we make sure that in the global community, every charity project manager knows that Drupal's a great choice? And I think that takes some coming together on our part. And I don't think that coming together should be seen in any way, shape, or form in us having to compete with each other. Here in Bristol, we've got a bunch of Drupal agencies, a bunch of very, very good Drupal agencies. But if you actually analyze our client portfolios, they're all, there's overlap, of course, but they're different. And what if I got together with some guys in Chicago, and maybe some guys in, Manchester, and some guys in Algeria and Brazil, and we said, guys, let's put together some time and resource to work out how we can create a distro of Drupal that, off the bat, is going to be ready to integrate with Razor's Edge, off the bat solves multilingual, off the bat integrates with, builds a donation funnel for us and goes through those mechanics, and is ready to be optimized and split tested, etc., etc., etc. We'd suddenly be creating what we call it in the sales world, if you like, an unfair advantage. But nobody from Chicago is ever going to come and buy from me, or they might. I'd love them to. If you're listening, Chicago, feel free. But nobody in Chicago is ever going to come and buy from me. And nobody in London wants to go over to Chicago for their solution. So by creating, if you like, sub-communities or micro-communities that are extremely commercially focused within the Drupal community, I think there's an opportunity to take, especially with Drupal 8, what has become an incredible platform that could be customized through the new configuration, features, etc., that ready to take on the world in a bunch of different verticals. Telemedicine, medical products, needs to integrate with EMIS. Data needs to be stored, etc., in certain specific ways. GDPR, extremely big challenge for those and I think somebody talked about that earlier. I'm sorry if you're in the room and I missed it. But GDPR, again, massive challenge, especially when medical records are on the line. What if we created a distro of Drupal that solved 50% of those problems before we started? What if we burrowed down? And the beauty of this, I think, is it has a magnifying effect. Because if we can then go out into so Nudge does stuff with financial services a lot. If we and 5 other companies that could invest just a little bit of cash and a little bit of time into going out to the financial services world and saying, and marketing, running Drupal events, not for Drupal people. You already know what Drupal is. You've probably already heard this talk, but by somebody else at another time. But what if we, as 5 different or 10 different or 50 different companies that wanted to focus on financial services around the world, started putting our marketing budgets into running events for financial services companies, specifically talking about the challenges of financial services companies, what they're looking to achieve, where the weaknesses and risk is in technology, and how Drupal solves that. Drupal doesn't just get a better name in the financial services market. That will resonate, especially if it's happening in 5 or 6 or 7 or 10, 20 key verticals. And at the end of the day, people like working with their neighbors. So, yeah, again, smuggled, wicked. People like working with their neighbors. And because we're such a global community, I don't think we need to worry, if you like, about pooling money on marketing, etc. I think we need to work smarter to understand how we can, as a piece of software, compete with Adobe's marketing budget or Sitecore's. So the events that I'd love to see happening, Drupal, sensible multinational website for charities. I'm going to use that example again, obviously. Drupal, the de facto prototyping platform for tech entrepreneurs. I think it could be with Drupal 8. Who else wants to go and play with startup money? It's the most exciting stuff out there. And with headless Drupal, we're sitting on a huge opportunity to be a fantastic rapid prototyping platform. But to get Ruby on Rails out of people's heads on Silicon Roundabout, and to get them to start going, hey, what, Drupal? Yeah, what, you mean that clunky content management? No, that was Drupal 7. No, what we mean is a back end for the new fangled, wondrous app you're creating. But to get Ruby on Rails out of people's minds, Laravel or whatever it is, or even Firebase, we need to come together and invest in that awareness. So where am I on time? Cool. Great, I'm going to run under then. So Drupal 8 opens up new opportunities. So this is the shortest piece of the presentation or talk or whatever you want to call it. But I think this is really important because I think now more than ever before, we need to, as a community, think smart about raising the profile of the benefits of Drupal. So just some of the multilingual functionality is way better than it ever has been before. You guys know this, but what opportunities does that give you as an agency with your current portfolio of clients to go out there and instead of selling the feature, sell the benefit? How do you use some of these new features to your advantage to make Drupal a solution, not a platform? Everything's structured. This, for me, was the biggest change. The fact that the structuring of data now means that, and I think headless Drupal could be the future of Drupal, personally, but the structuring of data means that we're suddenly in a world where Drupal is an incredibly viable back end to a mobile app. And of course it was before, but it was going to be a headache, and you had a lot of convincing to do. Now, I think that convincing is lessened hugely. We've seen there was a DrupalCon or DrupalCamp talk I saw where somebody was talking about using it as the back end of an Alexa app, fish jokes or something crazy. Amazing. But you wouldn't previously have used Drupal for that. Wearables, but I think most importantly, especially with a lot of us Drupalers mindsets, I think one of the biggest opportunities is that Drupal could become a disruptor and become the de facto backend for enterprise applications on a whole. I think there's huge opportunity now for an open source platform to go in and disrupt that market. And if you look at the price tags on the license fees, forget CQ5, forget Sitecore, that's just nearly swore. I promised I wouldn't. That stuff's expensive, but not compared to SAP. I think we could be on the cusp, if we go about this correctly, of seeing Drupal turn a very interesting corner. Paragraphs and panels, for me this is awesome because much to many of my team's disgust, I still like WordPress just for the ability to throw stuff around on a site. But paragraphs and panels let heathens like me do that, but within really, really, really strict confines of brand and of layout and of design principles, etc. So in terms of multinational brands and let's take a franchise, for example, the East of India Company. The East of India Company sells the most expensive tea in the world. They're just opening, and it's amazing tea. If you ever see an East of India shop, go in, try the tea. It's awesome. But these guys sell tea, and they're opening up tea shops all around the world. Now, one of the things they are really, really keen on, if you like, or imperative on, might be a better way of putting it, is their brand integrity. And one of the things they're super scared about is if we sell franchises off, or if we franchise the business off into these territories, how do we maintain quality, not just in the tea and the service, etc., but also online where they see which is their biggest communication channel? Drupal's always provided the option for that. Don't get me wrong, always could have been done. But I think features like this make Drupal now a compelling choice for somebody like the East of India Tea Company, which is going to have to give free rein to their franchises within, hopefully, their closely monitored confines. Accessible admin. Right, now, I'm a nasty, nasty salesman, but I've got a lot of feelings. The accessibility of the Drupal backend, it's long overdue, but it's long overdue in lots and lots and lots of software. If I was going to be a really nasty salesman, I'd say, now who can we sue in the public sector or in the private sector that hasn't got an accessible administration backend or an accessible administrative backend? Every caring organisation or every organisation with social responsibility now, we can really shake if they're not using something that's equally accessible. Why should we let these companies discriminate? And I talked about headless Drupal, I mentioned it a couple of times, but for me this is a huge step forward, and I think it gives us a new market segment. And for me it's one I'm super excited about. By day I'm a CEO, and then I've stepped out of that role a few times to go out and launch .coms and all sorts of stuff. I'm an ideas guy and I'm an innovator. And if my guys said to me, I tell you what, that great new idea you've got, we're going to build that on Drupal, they'd have said that 2 years ago. I said, no, thank you. I've got a lot of time for Drupal for the right projects. Now, I would consider Drupal in place of Firebase to get an app to market, which says a lot, I think, about where this is going. So, I guess in conclusion, you're not selling Drupal, but we as a community could. I think we should sell it, but sell it properly. At the moment, I think we're bad salesmen. I think we are what we call features-led in the sales world. I think we are guilty of going in and telling people about the leather seats and not about the comfortable ride that the leather seats offer. And when we teach people to sell or teach people business development, we always talk about the difference between features and benefits. And I think as a community, we've been absolutely guilty of talking about the features, the cloth, the wooden stick, the fact it's unbreakable, rather than talking about the benefits of the software that we use and spend so much time contributing to. If you're going to sell an umbrella, go to Dubai, stand on a beach and tell people they're not going to get burnt. Don't tell them it blocks the sun. Or go to the plains of Spain and tell them they're going to stay dry. I think that is my ambition, I guess, for the community as a whole moving forward. So with more benefits than ever before, let's, as agencies, I think, wake up to the new world where development is not as valuable as it used to be. But let's use that as a springboard and an opportunity. Let's, as a community, sell the benefits of Drupal, not the features. Let's, I hope, as sub-communities, create distros that solve specific problems in the world to create us, those that contribute to them, an unfair advantage. Why should we go to pitch and have to pitch on the same level? Let's win before we walk in the room. Let's specialize as agencies with deep knowledge, specific distros, unfair advantages, unicorns, fluffy bears, and everything else that's wonderful, and advertise Drupal as a solution together. So I summed it up again, it seems, in this slide. I was very tired when I put this together, but let's move forward as specialists, sub-communities, and as the wider community. Let's evolve and create an unfair advantage. And, of course, as open source innovators and members of what is one of the best technology communities, I think, in the world, let's always give away our genius. So don't sell Drupal, but if you want to buy it, call me. I sell Drupal. My name's Luke, and I'll be in the audience. Are there any questions? Is that enough? Did I talk enough?
That's enough.
Fantastic. Yeah. Are there any questions? Oh dear, that's going to get me in trouble.
How was Kazakhstan? Did you sell them Drupal there?
Yes, Kazakhstan has a Drupal installation going into their sovereign. Well, it's not a sovereign wealth fund, into a wealth fund, and I'm very hopeful will be the backbone of some other significant projects in the coming year.
So it's nice.
Isn't that? Tell you what, actually, so God, that's going to get me in trouble. Don't put that on YouTube. No, I was just thinking. So, Jake, I've just got off a plane from Kazakhstan, and just to do the country a favour, Borat is a Jewish dude that in a film that was filmed in Romania, and Astana, where Expo is being held at the moment, is an absolutely fantastic city. If you ever have the opportunity to pop in there, if you're in the stands or whatever, do go. Be very aware of colourful vodka shots, and very aware that if a Kazakh takes you to a karaoke bar, you will not leave until the sun comes up, and it happens frequently. Any other questions? God, I don't know if that's a good sign or a terrible sign. I'll retire. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Luke.